Hi,
Hi, Pierre Basile. Hello, everyone.
you watching today at home, we would like you to take a few seconds to analyze what you see here on the picture. Does this inspire you a healthy work environment? Well, let me tell you, that's typically a 90s workspace from a big company. You see a lot of employees running their white shirts, sitting in small cubicles with phones, cables everywhere, running around, looking for information in those piles of documents that you can see, and paper everywhere. Now, I'm gonna give you a little secret. This was the very reason why Odoo was invented. Customizable, highly user-friendly, affordable, and scalable tool that aims at providing companies with the best of software management they can find, and as well as making those people and those employees focus on their main job and not on looking in those documents. And as well, getting rid of all that paper. The road might be rocky, and it took us a long time, mistakes, but also successes, but we were able to create the best ERP solution that you can find on the market. And not only that, with Niels, we will walk you through that today, but we were able to identify with experience what are the best way to deploy Odoo in your company, and it's such a big environment. My name is Pierre Basile Meyer.
My name is Niels Goossens.
And together today, we would like to walk you through what is a big project, how to identify it, as well as what mistakes you should absolutely avoid, and what are the solutions you can do to do so.
When we think about what is a big project, I think it's important to think about, to realize that most of us will have a different definition. If we have a one-on-one conversation, a big project for you might not be a big project for me, might not be the same big project for Pierre Basile, but I guess we all agree that what will define the big project for us is the complexity level of that project. Based on our experience, as Pierre Basile just mentioned, we managed to spot different areas where the complexity can arise from, and we decided today to focus on three main elements. The first one is the prospect or the end user itself. Basically, a lot of elements will interfere in the project, and clearly the complexity might rise from that specific area. The project itself, it's clearly linked to the prospect, to the end user, but the specificity of that project might increase the complexity as well, and we will look at this further. External elements, unexpected elements, might also increase that complexity, and sometimes it's important to realize that we can tackle some of them up front. Let's take a look at the prospect, the structure and the complexity, or the end customer structure. First of all, the size of the company might not be the case all the time. It might be related to the size of the company. Clearly, when we think about the project that you would like to implement in a big company, the amount of different jobs you will have to qualify will also have an impact. Clearly, if you have a lot of people interacting together, you will have a lot of different SPOCs, and it will increase the complexity because you will have to gather feedback from those people, and those people might not have the same feedbacks to provide. Another element is the different in-between processes we will have based on the different positions, jobs we will qualify. Clearly, those people need to interact together, they need to exchange information, they need to work on the same project, on the same elements. And the thinking about how those people will interact is really important, and it might be really easy to implement or the other way around, of course. Another element is the resilience to change. Might not be related to the size of the company. We might have a really small company understanding that they need to digitalize themselves, but they don't really want to open their mind regarding what kind of advices we are willing to implement. Another element is the rigid corporate mindset. Everybody agrees in the company that we need to digitalize, but we are not really willing to change our processes, and this will certainly represent a lot of problems, issues you will have to tackle later on. Different locations. It might also happen, not always the case as I said, but it might happen that you have a mother company located in a specific country and daughter companies located elsewhere. We need to think about the different ways those companies, those entities will interact together, the way they will exchange information, the way we need to set all the access right of the users. This will be really important to think about from the beginning. The last element regarding the prospects, a non-exhaustive list, of course, but the last element we wanted to focus on is the legal and data privacy aspect. When we think about, for instance, laboratories, it's clearly important for them to think about the data privacy. We don't want anyone to understand what is in our blood, for instance. So they need to make sure that they are in line with all the regulations based on the services they're providing to their end users. When we think about the project itself, a big element that is really important and that we need to think about is the way we will adapt our processes versus the solution. Odoo is a really simple and easy to use solution, as Pierre Basile mentioned. And most of the time, it might be interesting to think about our processes and the way we can change our processes to make sure we are in line with the solution we are willing to implement, in this case, Odoo. Not always the case, not always might be the best solution, but think about it. It might help you to save a lot of time. Number of spokes here, again, I'm talking about the project. So we might have a lot of people that are responsible to take decisions, to take responsibilities. And the more you will have people who should take decisions, the higher the complexity will be, of course. Planning. Here, what I wanted to focus on is the fact that it's important for everyone to make sure that the project is moving forward. If you are an end customer, if you are an implementing partner, anyone that is responsible for the project, it's really important to understand that people will want the project to move forward. They want to see improvements, but we will need to make sure that there is a buffer time for end users to try a little bit the solution, make sure they understand the best way to handle their daily activities, and make sure that basically you have the perfect balance between the velocity and the buffer times. And the last element I wanted to mention regarding the project is paperwork. Here I'm talking obviously about RFPs, RFQs, all the legal documentation that you need to provide internally or even externally potentially. It might also increase the level of complexity. The last element I wanted to focus on today, is the external elements that are most of the time unexpected. Some of them are unexpected and others are elements that we can tackle and foreseen from the beginning of the project. First element is the local regulations. I like to take as an example the electronic invoicing. In some countries, it's really important to be able to send your invoice in real time to the government or to any legal institution that is responsible to analyze the invoices you are producing with your company. And clearly, this might have an impact. We need to think about this. If your mother company is located in a specific country and the daughter companies are elsewhere, clearly the local regulations might have an impact, and we need to think about this from the beginning once again. Funding solutions. It might look like something really interesting. Someone will help me to fund my project, to digitalize my company. It's amazing, but clearly we know by experience that it might increase the complexity as well when we think about the delays in payments, or just again, all the admin work we have to fulfill to make sure that we are eligible to that fund. It might have an impact on the velocity of the project too. The knowledge of the person who will implement the solution is really important. It might be you internally, you have an IT team in your company that will be responsible for the project. You might contact an IT integrator, someone that provides IT services that will do the implementation for you. You might contact us at Odoo. We have a huge team of consultants that are well qualified. Clearly, their knowledge is really important. Think about that person, that team that will implement the solution for you, Odoo, in your company. You need to make sure that these people are aware of the processes, the complexity of your structure, that they know the solution very well, that they know the type of hosting. All these elements are really important, and think about the people that will handle this. And the last element I wanted to tackle is the competition. Might be internal, might be external. I'm talking about potential other solutions that will be in competition with Odoo. Maybe internally, people that are not agreeing with the solution we are looking to implement. Think about this, think about the different competition, and make sure you are ready to tackle it.
Well, thanks a lot, Niels, because that's actually very interesting. Now we know, and you guys know as well, how to recognize a big project, or at least what are the warning signs that should be triggered when you see such a project. I'm going to focus a little bit now about mistakes and as well potential solutions on what we can do. And for that, we're going to sit in the shoes of two different people. First of all, we will sit in the shoes of the customer, and later on, we will sit in the shoes of the integrator, meaning the person or the company which provides the services to implement and deploy Odoo. When we think about the customer, we actually, with Niels, identified 6 potential big mistakes, and I'm going to focus a little bit more on the solutions in a couple of seconds. The first problem or mistake that we identified is the no will to adapt processes, which is highly linked to the reluctancy to external IDs. You will see in a couple of seconds again what kind of IDs we have to actually mitigate that risk. No macro planning, that's a big problem and a big risk of failure. Over-optimization of budget, so you as a customer, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, but should understand that you have to spend money on an Odoo project because it's an investment. Too many points of contact. Niels already mentioned the rigidity and the corporate mindset, and as well the many people that could be in the project. That's one big risk for you as a customer. And the lack of alignment from day one. That's actually something that I'm going to focus on in a couple of seconds. If we take a look at the 2 first mistakes that we identified, our idea is actually to adopt a consultative approach, right? So this is one of the key points which is also explained in the Odoo implementation methodology. So a methodology based on all the projects that Odoo has deployed by itself with the help of our internal consultants. But it means understand and be ready to listen to other people, get some feedback from them. It doesn't mean that you have 100% to apply what they say, but just think a little bit out of the box and be ready to listen. No macro planning. What does that mean? It means that from a big project, you want to shrink it down and to reduce to smaller bits and segment it to actually make something which is easily realizable. For that, you should set milestones. You should set meetings in the first place. And what we saw with Niels, but as well with other people in our company, is that the more people get to know themselves behind, in real life and not behind their keyboard or their screen, the higher the chances are that the project is well deployed. So if you have the chance as a customer to host a meeting at your site, for example, with your integrator and maybe with Odoo people, I think you should really take that chance. Also monitor progress. It means create tools to do that so that you know always where you are and where you stand in the implementation and the deployment of the software. The over-optimization of budget, what does that mean? It means that actually we think, as Odoo and with Niels, that you should pay as a customer for what you get delivered, which means time and material approach. It means that the cost will be actually narrowed down to what you use or what you get delivered and not to any potential hypothesis, okay? It means also that as much as you want to know where you stand in the implementation in terms of milestones, you also want to know where you stand in your budget consumption. And for this, you should use cost tracking tools. Now, this is actually maybe something that's going to shock you as a customer, but here the consent to spend money is actually a strong idea that we wanted to share in this video, which is that Odoo or any software is actually complicated and it's a job by itself to deploy and to implement it. So for this, the people or the company who provides the services should be rewarded, and the reward should be you acknowledging that you have to spend money. Too many points of contacts. So for this, actually, it can create a mess if you have too many people walking around and gravitating around the project. So use a clear governance structure, and of course, appoint clear roles to everyone. It means that also maybe from a team of 5 people who are, accounting, for example, in your accounting department, reduce it to 1 key users, and the other one will only be people who give feedback through this main people or main point of contact. So that's exactly reducing number of stakeholders. Lack of alignment from day one. What does that mean? That means that every decision that is made for the project should be done in a written way and should be stamped and signed from you, from you and from as well the integration company. Now, about that, we also thought about two other ideas which are very important to our eyes. The first one, which is that change. So taking your company from something that they were using before, maybe another software, maybe Odoo community, maybe no software at all, to using an ERP is actually a long process and it's a big change. And this change is not something that falls on your company, but it's something that you should accompany. So take your people by the hand, help them, and get this change on the long term ready. Of course, the second idea is that people from Odoo, and especially in our teams, Niels and I, are trained to give you those kind of insights. So please don't hesitate to use it. Call us, email us, and we will help you find a way to understand the project, understand the software, and be sure to use it at its maximum and avoid mistakes. If we sit now in the shoes of the integrator, which means any company that provides services to the customer, or it can be also an internal department, for example, your IT department as a customer who deploys Odoo. Actually, we saw four main mistakes, which are the poor qualification of the project, the acceptance of a project above capacities, too many lines of specific development. I'm going to revert, of course, to the solutions in a couple of seconds, and the lack of alignment again. Here, for the poor qualification of the project, this means that actually you as an integrator, again, as maybe an internal department of the company or as an external provider, you should get some training for your staff if they don't know. Of course, you should also assign experts by area of expertise. So let's say that Niels sitting next to me, for example, is an expert in logistics. So of course you will not appoint this resource to the deployment of the, accounting or of the sales of the web marketing, for example. The same way as you would not appoint an accountant to the deployment of the manufacturing processes, of course. Then, as an integrator, what you should do, of course, is focus a lot and spend some time on the pre-analysis phase, but it means you should also get some money and get paid for that. Now, one thing which looks very important to us, which is not easy sometimes to do and to acknowledge for ourselves, is to be humble and to know our strengths, but also to know our weaknesses. Of course, if we have weaknesses, it means that we might need some help, and Odoo can provide you that. Other companies can provide you that. You can find online resources, online material, training courses and everything, but get your staff trained and also recognize when they don't know when they need more competencies. Define a clear roadmap and success metrics, of course. That's very important because as much as it's important for the customer to know where they stand, it's also important for you as an integrator to know where you are and when everything will be done and handled because you don't have unlimited resources. Too many specific developments. So the Odoo way of developing the software is that normally we think that everything should be covered by the standard or as much as possible. So here, by training your staff and using Odoo at its maximum, what it should mean is your staff challenging processes of the company in which you want to deploy Odoo over actually more development and custom-made applications, for example. It might also mean change your business model, and this again would maybe be more of a time and material approach. And here, normally the days of functional consultancy that you could sell are more expensive in general than the days of development that you could do. Put emphasis on the testing. So that's very important because you don't want your customer to test it in the first place without you having tested it before. And of course, be humble again. And it means that as good as you might be, there might be another company and another integrator working after you for the duration of the project, or maybe on the second phases or later for an upgrade. And this means comment and structure your code because otherwise it's a mess and it's going to be very hard to recover from this. Now, the lack of alignment, which is, again, use the chance to create a macro planning in the first place before starting. And of course, use again the tools that were put in place to know where you are and which milestone you reached already. Plan resources accordingly. freeze intermediate releases. So it means that instead of delivering everything in a bulk at once to your customer, use the chance to actually segment it by smaller bits, maybe the accounting first, and then the sales, and then the logistics in a way that should work. And of course, manage expectation, and change requests. It means that the project is long, so if there are changes, it might have a big impact on things which are already done, and this should be documented at least, but maybe also consider to get them paid and charged for.
Thank you, Pierre Basile. I think we could discuss this topic way more during long hours, but we really hope that after this small presentation, you have a better understanding of how to qualify a project, at least how to define what is a big project, and of course, based on the level of complexity, as we mentioned. If your company looks today a little bit like this 90s company, please make sure that you get in touch with an integrator, or that you define yourself internally what you would like to do. Make sure that you have a good view of the different processes that you would like to change. Make sure that you understand all the different pain points that the company currently needs to tackle, and make sure that you communicate. The methodology is key, as Pierre Basile mentioned. It's something really important. You need to discuss, you need to exchange before the start of the implementation. Make sure that you remember all the best practices that we provided, that you avoid all the mistakes that we mentioned. There are others, clearly. As we mentioned, it wasn't an exhaustive list. We can clearly discuss this further if you are interested. Feel free to get back to us. It will be a pleasure for us to discuss this again. You have our email addresses at the beginning of the presentation. If you already have an Odoo point of contact, feel free to get back to that person. You will be redirected to the best person you need to talk to. We thank you again for watching us, and we wish you all the best for your Odoo implementations.
Thank you.
So, for example, one thing which is very important in the Odoo general methodology or Odoo implementation methodology is, for example, train the trainer. So what we say is always like try to find someone from the customer, train this person, get them like knowledgeable on Odoo, and of course then this person will be the sponsor, but will also share the knowledge among the company. And this is, for example, one quick and easy thing that you can implement as well on big projects, but that we managed to find from the smaller ones.
To add on this, I think it's also really important to try to stick to the standard as much as possible. So I know it's not always possible, especially when we talk about big implementations. I know, the corporates have some specific requirements, but try to define what will be must-have, what will be nice to have for that company. Try to make sure that you implement the most important thing for the customer from the beginning. Phase your project, as Pierre Basile explained several times. This will enable you to, this is part of the Odoo implementation methodology that you can potentially apply to big projects. And we have many other ideas, so come back to us.
Okay, perfect. Another question that I have here is, how do you see the collaboration or importance to work with partners on big projects? How do you see, what would be for you the win-win situation here? What can the partner bring what Odoo doesn't have, and vice versa?
Well, I think there is a huge list of things that partners can bring. As you saw during 3 days, partners are part of our success, a huge part of our success. We still generate more revenue on the indirect sales in terms of sales than on the direct sales. So I think clearly the proximity, we don't have offices in every cities, in every country, so that's the first element. The languages, we are not able to tackle projects in every languages, so clearly this has another impact. And when it comes to project management, I would say clearly the expertise approach, the verticalization. If you decided to focus on one specific element of the market, one part of the market, one segment, this will clearly be something that will bring an added value.
Local knowledge, for example, with the accounting or something, or the fiscal positions, or all of this.
Exactly.
Okay, totally agree. All right, if there's any other question, we have time for one other. Maybe anything you want to add on your experience, maybe on something that you learned from following a big project. What would you have changed now? Looking back at what happened.
So, for example, one thing that I learned a little bit the hard way was actually about the whole pre-sales phase, which was by this partner actually, because I'm also working on the indirect side, not charged. And at the end of the day, it led after a couple of months and many demos to a poor qualification. And this is one of the topics that we mentioned during our presentation. And for this now, I would say, like, for me, this is one of the critical points is the sizing and the phasing of the project for this. So qualification, sizing, phasing, this is something that you cannot compromise with.
Anything to add on that?
No, I think it was quite complete. Yeah, basically, I think the lack of communication, the lack of alignment from the beginning, this is something that put us in a really difficult situation. So make sure that everything is on paper, well defined, that you agree on everything, and that you work on time and material. This is really important.
And again, maybe here the key idea about this presentation is just that we would like to highlight some ideas, right? Like, might not check all the boxes, and sometimes it's maybe also not an exhaustive list, but it's just ideas that you have so that you see them.
All right. Perfect.
Well,
thank you.
thank you
Thank
all.
you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.